So here's a question at hand. I think this was it. Question 47. Okay, let's read it. The current ticket price for Lassiter football game is $7 per person, and an average of 2,100 people buy tickets. Studies show that for each 50-cent increase in price, 100 fewer people will attend the games. Show it work to find the price that would bring in most revenue and state what the revenue would be. Okay, so to answer this question, we need to model a quadratic function, okay? Now, there are two quantities that try to coordinate this. We have the price and how that price is changing, and we have the number of people and how that's changing. Price is in red, the number of people is in blue. So let's create the price equation first. So let's say the price equation, we're starting out at $7 per ticket, but we are increasing the price by 50 cents. So plus 50 cents each time we increase the price. So each time will be represented by X. In other words, let's say let X equal the number of times we increase the price. And that is going to be our price binomial, okay? Now let's move on to the number of people. Let's call this the people equation. For the people equation, we're starting out at 2,100 people, but every time we increase the price, we lose 100. There's 100 fewer people, so subtract 100 people each time we increase the price. There goes the X again showing up. That's our people equation. And to tie these two things together, we need to figure out how much money we're going to make, right? So we need another equation. Let's call this the revenue equation because it tells us how much money we're making. Revenue equation. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say you are selling tickets at $4 a pop, and then you have 10 people show up at your event for the tickets that you're selling. So $4 a pop for tickets, 10 people buy them, you'd make $40. How do we get there? We take the price, times it by the number of people that bought it. That's literally what we are doing in here. We have the price equation in red, and the number of people that are buying in blue. We just need to multiply them together. So 7 plus 0.5x times 2,100 minus 100x. And you're going to FOIL this. I'm hoping you can FOIL this pretty quickly. 7 times 21 is, 7, 14. So it's 147, 0, 0. 7 times negative 100x is negative 700x. 0.5 times 2,100, so basically half of 2,100 is 1050x. And then 0.5x times negative 100 is negative 50x to the second. These are like terms. Let's combine them and then write this in standard form, which means start with the highest degree down to the smallest degree. So negative 50x to the second. What is that? Negative 700 plus 1050 is plus 350x. And then plus 14,700. And this equation is the revenue equation. This tells you a lot. So let's actually break this down. If we were to graph this function, it would open downwards, like it would be upside down. Why? Because the leading coefficient is a negative number. So I'm going to try to sketch this over here, right? So we would have a graph that sort of looks like this. What we are focusing on is the vertex of that graph. Why are we focusing on the vertex, you ask? Because the vertex gives us crucial information. The y-axis is how much money we make, so the y-axis is really revenue. The x-axis is the price. So if you have the vertex, you know it's the highest point, which means that's the maximum money you can make is at the vertex. To be precise, the y value gives us the maximum amount of money you're going to make. This is the maximum revenue, max revenue. And then the x value tells you, remember we defined x as the number of times we're going to increase the price. So we already know that x tells us how many times we need to increase the price and make the most money. So let's go ahead and graph this equation in Desmos. You can use Desmos or you can use your graphing calculator. Just type in this revenue equation that we just came up with right here. I'm going to use Desmos so you can actually see this. Let me pause and type it so I don't always. There we go. So now I've typed the equation this is the vertex of it in Desmos. So we are seeing the vertex is 3.5 and 153, 12.5. Okay, so the vertex is 3.5, comma, 1, 5, I forgot, what was it, 153.12.50, I think it was. I'm going to double check that. 153.12, yep, 0.15. So again, we know the Y value. This guy here is the maximum revenue. So we know part of the answer, what the maximum revenue would be is that value. The 3.5 on the other hand is telling us we would raise the price 3.5 times. So we need to plug in this X value in here so we can figure out what our price would be after those 3.5 price increases. So 7 plus 0.5 times 3.5. So the price is, let's see, 8.75. So what we are seeing is that at $8.75 per ticket, we are maximizing our profit, and the maximum profit we're going to make is $15,312.50. This is the maximum profit. So those two boxes are the answer to this question. 8.75, 15,350. Hope that makes sense. Okay, then there was another question I think that was raised. Let me see if I can scroll down. Go to right here. I think it was 47. Yep, 47. Okay. All right. It says, if 3 is a solution to this equation, find the value of A. Okay, if you're being told that 3 is a solution, it means that X equals 3. What that means then is we can plug in 3 into each of these X values to help us solve for A. So we have A times 3 to the second power plus 5 times 3 minus A equals 11. So this becomes 9A plus 15 minus A equals 11. These are like terms. 9A minus A is 8A plus 15 equals 11. Subtract 15 from both sides. We end up having 8A equals negative 4. Divide both sides by 8. And I'm going to write it here because we don't have any more space. A ends up becoming negative 1 over 2. So that's part A. Easy peasy. The next part of this is asking for find the other solution to that equation. Well, we don't have much of an equation until we gotta plug in the A value into this equation so we have something that we can actually solve. So thankfully, we just found out that A is negative 1/2. So let's plug it in. So negative 1 over 2 x squared plus 5x minus negative 1 over 2 equals 11. I don't know about you, but I don't like that we have negative. Two negatives next to each other. Let's just change that to a plus. And if you're going to solve a quadratic equation, it's pretty difficult to do that when you have fractions. So I'm going to show you a way to just get rid of the fractions and have a nicer looking equation. Since the denominator is a 2, let's multiply this entire equation by negative 2. Why negative 2? Because you always want the leading coefficient to be a positive. And negative times a negative helps us have that positive coefficient that we are looking for. So let's go ahead and distribute that. Negative 2 all the way through. This becomes x squared. Negative 2 times 5x is negative 10x. Negative 2 times 1/2 is negative 1. Negative 2 times 11 is negative 22. Now, when you're solving a quadratic equation, you want to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 22 to both sides. Okay, we don't have a lot of space here. So let's write the result of that up here, actually, because we don't have much room. So we end up having x squared minus 10x plus 21 equals 0. And we can factor and solve this quadratic equation. There are many ways to really do these. I don't know which method you use, but let's go ahead and use I'm going to call this the X method, where we need the product given by A times C and the sum given by the B value. Well, the A and C values are 1 and 21. So 1 times 21 is 21. And the sum is given by the B value, which happens to be a negative 10. So we ask ourselves, which two numbers do we multiply together to get a negative 21? And then when we add them, we get a negative 10. And those numbers are -3 and -7. -3 times -7 is +21. -3 minus 7 is -10. So the two numbers are -3 and -7. Once we know that, that's what we put in our parentheses, x minus 3 and x minus 7. Those are the factors. Remember, you solve for each of these by setting each equal to 0. So you're going to add 3 to both sides. This is going to end up being x equals 3. Add 7 to both sides. This one's going to end up being a 7. I mean, if you want me to show the work, plus 3 plus 3 plus 7 plus 7. These cancel. That's how we end up getting these answers. Well, to prove it, we were already told that 3 is a solution. There it is. You're seeing x equals 3, which we were already given. We were looking for the other solution. So the answer to this question ultimately is x equals 7. I hope that helps. Now, in the future, for Algebra 2 help, you either choose me, Eddie, or choose Kate when you're scheduling going forward. I hope this helps. Thank you.